Hey everybody, this is Mark Zachos. Welcome to our episode of Supercharged. Today we have another special guest with us, Len Kata. He's the chairman of our SAE Mobility History Committee. So I want to welcome him to the program, and today we're going to talk about mobility history in the committee and the work that you guys do. Welcome, Len.
Hi, Mark. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're here in Detroit area, and it's part of the SAE Detroit section where you live and reside, and the Mobility History Committee, I guess, meets in non-COVID times face to face, right?
Right.
The Mobility History Committee is part of the SAE International, though. You guys report right up to the folks in Warrendale there, and I'm kind of curious. You're just not like another car club, right? There's something really SAE engineering behind that. Can you give us a little background on the committee, please?
Sure. The SAE Mobility History Committee, which was formed in 2004, I like to think of as a group of engineering historians. You know, much of SAE's work is in the area of standard setting, but our responsibility is more in the area of presenting the history of mobility, primarily to other engineers, academics, students, and the general public in a way that gets them interested in the heritage of technology and perhaps gets them thinking about how they can pursue that heritage with an eye toward the future. So that's our basic goal.
You can't get there, right? It's
right.
Knowing where you came from, right?
Right. Our mantra basically is you can't get to where you're going unless you know where you've been. So that summarizes the idea of relying on past evolution of technology to recognize what is necessary to go forward into the future.
So speaking of technology, then, you guys are engineers, and well, not just men and women, technologists, maybe engineers, but you focus on that history of evolution, of change, and we can learn a lot. Engineers today can learn a lot about how ABS systems work or braking systems work or the handbrake. You just kind of go back in time and learn, kind of the techniques and help us advance, I think, in new technology as well. So, what works, what doesn't work. You publish papers too, right? At the WCX event, there's technical papers. Can you give us a little understanding of how that all comes together within the committee, please?
Right. Well, going back to your original point, the Mobility History Committee does have a number of engineers, but there are people from other disciplines, including public relations and marketing and the service area of the automobile industry. But one thread that seems to be common throughout the membership is that they have a great regard for the history of mobility and have a very deep knowledge with respect to the history of technology. And as you mentioned, we do try to present papers or present folks with discussions such as during the WCX exhibit at the Learning Lab, where we'll bring folks in that can talk even more about particular subject areas, particularly in relation to the theme of the display that we happen to be engaged in that year.
Mm-hmm. What were some of the themes that in the past years that you could mention that I've seen quite a few of them. They're all interesting. Anything you want to highlight here?
Well, as I mentioned, the Mobility History Committee goes back to 2004. My history with them is only about 4 years, but I can talk about the last few years, going back 3 subjects, if you will. Our overall theme has been the history of the future. So in 2018 at WCX, we presented the history of the future, the road to autonomy. And the idea there was to show with actual displays of equipment and vehicles on the show floor, how technology has evolved from early in the 1900s with things like the electric starter, moving through automatic transmissions, then cruise control, anti-lock braking. And if you stack all these things together in a historical perspective, you recognize that the innovation of all these technologies was necessary to get to the point of having an autonomous vehicle. You know, just a simple example is you couldn't have an autonomous vehicle if you hadn't discovered cruise control. So that was one example. But the following year, we did the history of the future powering the cars of tomorrow. And in that case, we looked at powertrains. We had early electric and steam-powered vehicles. We had the Chrysler turbine car as kind of the draw for our exhibit. We also had a rotary engine car, and then moving into the more modern hybrids and pure electric vehicles. So this display went from basically the early 1900s to present day and showed how powertrains have evolved over time. And then finally, this most recent WCX 2021 was the history of the future covering mid-engine evolution. And mid-engine, you know, gets a lot of press recently because of newer vehicles such as the Acura NSX or the new Corvette as a mid-engine car. But if you go back to 1900, I don't know if it's 3 or so, the Curved Dash Olds, a very early car, was a mid-engine vehicle. So they started out that way, but we try to demonstrate how that technology evolved over time and get people thinking about how you had to stack this knowledge up to be able to get to the technology we're seeing on the road today.
Yeah, so history is not bunk, I guess, more or less. Now, if you could give us a little more insight into your other events and other things that you've done. You know, I see some faces I know in this picture here, and then I also see there's an airplane there. What's up with that? I thought you were car guys.
Yeah, this actually was our most recent event. It took place at the Yankee Air Museum at Willow Run Airport, actually, sponsored by the Yankee Air Museum. And this is called the Wings and Wheels event. It's where the Yankee Air Museum has a display of slightly over 100 American-built vehicles being out on the tarmac around vintage aircraft. And the Yankee Air Museum was kind enough to allow us to set up our display. You can see on the table covering there, it promotes A World in Motion, which is the SAE STEM program. And that's another thing that the Mobility History Committee is quite involved in. One of our members, Steve Rode, has spent a number of years working with educators and promoting the SAE World in Motion program. And we like to spread the word at the events that we're attending to encourage young folks to take a look at technology and maybe try to entice them with examples of a few of the projects that the students will end up working on.
Yeah, we had in a prior episode some guests talking about the AWIM program and collegiate design series and all of the great programs that SAE International offers, and seeing you tie that together with the World in Motion. What does this Meet the Engineer video? How does that come about?
Oh, that's also something we're trying to promote from an educational standpoint. If you go, I believe, to the SAE Detroit section and their archives, they will have a series of videos that the Mobility History Committee has produced. As you mentioned, it's called Meet the Engineer. And it gives folks an opportunity to hear what some of the experiences are of everything from students who are currently in engineering school to retired engineers that have a wealth of experience actually in industry, and talk about what it means to be an engineer, provide some advice on how to pursue that vocation, and just give folks, and we hope primarily youth, a sense of what it means to be an engineer and the need for engineers on into the future.
Mhm. What are you planning then as a future event? What's on the agenda for the next 6 or 12 months? Do you have something already stacked up for WCX 2022, I guess? What would that be coming along?
Well, throughout the balance of this year, we will be at some public events, such as those listed on the slide. The Henry Ford Motor Muster will
Mhm.
be at the Concours of America. That one should be interesting because we'll be promoting, again, A World in Motion and our STEM activities. But this happens to be the 60th year of the Jaguar E-Type and
Ah.
Mini Cooper. So we will have a video that's being prepared by Steve Rode and Martin Rowell of the Mobility History Committee, talking about the evolution of the Jaguar E-Type in particular and the Mini Cooper. And then toward the end of the year, we hope to have either an in-person or virtual presence at the SAE Convec event, which is a commercial vehicle event in Illinois, again, promoting the same sort of things that I was talking about. And
Mhm.
then in October is the SAE Brake Colloquium down in Orlando. Again, it's a little bit up in the air as to whether we'll be there in person or virtually or both.
Mhm.
But trying to mold our presentation to the subject of the event, we will be showing some information about the evolution of braking systems in particular. So we can pick apart these different technologies
Right.
and try to mold our presentations to align with the theme of the event. You brought up WCX 2022. We're just kicking that around now. We have a few ideas. I don't want to give anything away yet because it's not certain. But we're looking toward possibly showing how the marketing of technology has evolved over time.
Neat.
And that might be our subject for 2022.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. So, I mean, the listeners out there, they probably are maybe wondering how to get involved, right? So how did you actually get involved, and how do you get connected here? Is that you got to know somebody who knows somebody, or what?
Well, that is basically the way it worked for me. At the photo that you had of our World in Motion display there at the Yankee Air Museum, or the Wings and Wheels event, shows a gentleman standing over my shoulder, Keith Lehman Stevens. We happened to meet at a car club event and got to talking, and he suggested that the Mobility History Committee might be a good fit for me. And I just kind of barged in on one of their meetings one day down in Troy, and the rest is history. 2 years later, I ended up chairing the committee that I really didn't know that much about prior to that time. But folks that are interested can contact the SAE offices in Troy, Michigan. I think we're going to post a contact email and phone number and voice an interest in joining the Mobility History Committee.
So there's no pre-qualifications, or you don't have to take a test. It's,
No tests, no physical. It's all.
Yeah, but you might win an award, or you might be party to an award. So I see you guys have look at that. It's the Motor City Heritage National. Tell us about that. That's really cool.
Right. This slide shows a group of us when we went to the state capitol in Lansing, Michigan. to accept an award, excuse me, from the Motor Cities National Heritage Area. This is an organization that is actually under the National Park Service that promotes heritage sites primarily in southeastern Michigan having to do with the automobile industry and that have some historical significance. And each year they present awards, and we won the award in the category of education and interpretation for a particular thing that the SAA Mobility History Committee did, which was to preserve a photo album that was discovered in the SAE Detroit offices, I believe, that could have otherwise, just been set aside or gathering dust, but we recognized it as a historical artifact, and it depicts the visit of Captain Eddie Rickenbacker, a World War I flying ace, to the Willow Run Airport production facility, the Willow Run Aircraft Factory, in 1943. And this was a sort of morale boosting trip. The United States government was using Captain Rickenbacker to go out and encourage those that were involved in the war effort during World War II. And he made his presence known in Detroit, and he was hosted by the SAE Detroit section. And it included captains of industry in the automobile industry. Our group preserved this photo album, also made a digital document preserving the photos in that album. And one of the group members did enough research to be able to uncover newsreel footage of that event, which is incorporated in a video that folks could see by going to the SAE Detroit section archives. And consequently, after having presented that, we applied for this award and were fortunate enough to have Motor Cities select our effort and SAE as winners in that category.
Wow, congratulations. That's pretty neat. So there's one question though I just thought of that I was wondering, well, where are these things that you uncover and preserve, where are they archived? Is there like a section in the back of the Henry Ford Museum that you guys meet in the dark at night, or is it all online, or how does that all the material it's available, right? You can share that. You can't.
Right.
Right.
Well, a lot of, in the case of the Motor Cities Award, the album was found in the SAE offices. That was before my time, but that's my understanding. A couple of folks went there and were going through old documentation and came across this scrapbook or photo album. Subsequent to winning the award, we then presented the album to the Yankee Air Museum, and they now have that album on permanent loan. So we're hoping that they'll take great care with that album, and it'll be archived there until such time as either we would like to have it back or they no longer have a need for it, but it comes back to SAE.
Yeah, it's in good hands. So
yeah,
and there's a lot of materials like that, I imagine, as well as some available online. You can digitize things now, and that'd be very interesting to learn a little bit more about that.
That's true. And if the other members are anything like me, members of the committee actually have libraries and collections of magazines going back, for example, automotive related magazines. I've got a collection of 40 years worth or so. So some of us have our own archives.
Yeah, you can ask my wife what I got in the basement. I hope she finds all the cool stuff I got buried deep there. But anyway, I'm looking forward to contributing, and you don't need to be retired. The meetings are open to anyone, and you can come in and enjoy discussion and connect with the great team like you're seeing here. And if you do get engaged and involved, there's always those sorts of rewards just waiting for you there. You know, the giving back is always part of SAE as well.
That's absolutely right. We have members ranging from current engineering students through retirees. So everyone is welcome. And we look forward to folks joining us and sharing their experience in that area.
Before we wrap up, I guess I have one, my experience and background is in automotive diagnostics and security and cybersecurity. What do you think the future is for, you know, security in cars, maybe, you know, the locking doors, and you have the, you know, steering column lock, and then the cybersecurity locks. What are we going to see in the next 5 or 10 years? I don't know. Any?
Yeah, it's you know, technology moves so quickly today that it's difficult to predict those things. But certainly, as you mentioned, it started with very simple things from just door locks and steering column locks to anti-theft devices. I think moving forward, there's going to be more and more emphasis on cybersecurity and efforts that are necessary to prevent ne'er-do-wells, if you will, from hacking into these systems. Personally, I'm hoping that the experts working on these issues are always one step ahead of those that are trying to defeat those systems. But perhaps as we move toward more electric vehicles and eventually autonomous vehicles, a lot of these features will get developed along with that technology that'll safeguard the vehicle and improve the safety of the vehicle as well. I also look forward to more improvements in vehicle safety as well as security.
Yeah, they go, there are a lot of synergies there, hand in hand. So it's really going to be interesting to trace this and keep tabs and look back. And personally, I look forward to contributing my time and what little knowledge I can to benefit. So I hope the viewers got some insight into our Mobility History Committee that SAE is so graciously supporting. You pay your dues. SAE members are supporting this work, and many thanks to you, Len, and all the volunteers. If we want to get more information, if you want to get more details, the SAE Detroit section, you can reach out to us at that address there. And then who does that email go to there, the automotive HQ, that'll wind up in your inbox eventually, right, Len?
Eventually, yes. There's a gentleman at SAE Troy who is our SAE contact, Mark Czar, who will probably be made aware of anything sent to the Troy address. And Brandy Schandelmeyer is our contact in Warrendale. So I'm sure they will be the first to hear. And if I could just add one more point before we close, I spoke a lot about the automotive aspect of it, but this Mobility History Committee also has an interest. It's the Mobility History Committee. It's not the Automobile History Committee. So we're also interested in other forms of transportation, and we are looking for ways to expand our interest in the area of aeronautics. So that's something else that folks should consider if they're interested in joining.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out. Once again, it's the Mobility History Committee is not under SAE Detroit section. It's under the SAE International umbrella. So you could be working in California, living in Oregon. You could be in Arizona. Anywhere, even overseas, and want to contribute and participate. Your meetings are now by Zoom or WebEx. And if you're in Detroit, you ever want to show up at the SAE office, international office in Troy, Michigan, there's an opportunity there. The
Absolutely right. We do have members right now that call in from around the United States. So it's not limited to the Detroit area.
and maybe even some celebrity members too. I hear there's some folks in the UK that kind of worked on some very famous automobiles, right?
Yeah, yeah, we occasionally have an opportunity to rub elbows with folks that have a history with the automobile industry, that have some, celebrity status, but not very often.
We're all celebrities in our own way. Thank you, Len, for joining today. Thanks to all of your friends and colleagues there at the Mobility History Committee. Really think we learned a little bit and look forward to the next event. So thank you, everyone. And till next time, this is Mark Zachos.